Welcome back to Day 5 cent 1976. The rich tapestry of American coinage. Few pieces stir the curiosity of collectors and historians quite like the Jefferson nickel, and among them, the 1976 Jefferson nickel holds a story so layered, so filled with hidden turns and silent importance, that even seasoned collectors find themselves returning to it time and again, drawn by its quiet mystery and the enormous hypothetical valuation that some now place upon its finest examples, a staggering and speculative $76 million in symbolic face value. This is not merely about metal content or mintage numbers. This is about a moment in American history, a cultural undercurrent, and a hidden economic tale embedded in the metal disc that slipped through millions of hands during the bicentennial era. The year 1976 was monumental in the United States, the bicentennial of the country's independence. A year of parades, fireworks, historical reenactments, and a powerful resurgence of patriotism that swept from sea to shining sea. People were looking backward and forward at the same time. They celebrated 200 years of independence, yet also peered ahead at what the next centuries might hold. The U.S. Mint, attuned to the national mood, issued special bicentennial designs on the quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins. But one denomination remained curiously unchanged, the 5-cent Jefferson nickel.it didn't receive a bicentennial redesign. To the casual observer, it seemed like a missed opportunity. But to those who watched the mint closely, who understood the rhythm of coin production, this choice wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. The decision to keep Jefferson's profile on the nickel untouched while the other coins got flashy new motifs was not a snub but a statement, a nod to the enduring stability of American institutions and leadership. The Jefferson nickel, bearing the calm, thoughtful gaze of Thomas Jefferson, had been in circulation since 1938. By 1976, it had seen war, peace, prosperity, and unrest. It had become a background fixture in the daily lives of millions, buying soda, paying bus fare, handed to children as allowance or dropped unknowingly into sidewalk cracks. But within its consistent design lay the perfect vessel for subtle commemoration. And for the most perceptive numismatists, the 1976 nickel represents a hidden gem in the numismatic timeline, a coin overlooked precisely because it didn't scream for attention. What makes the 1976 Jefferson nickel particularly special lies not only in its context but in its physical and production details. It was minted in Philadelphia and Denver that year. No nickels were struck in San Francisco for general circulation. Both versions bear their respective mint marks, or in Philadelphia's case at that time, no mint mark at all. But the 1976 D nickels, in particular, have intrigued collectors for decades due to strange anomalies, minor die errors, and faint overstrikes that have surfaced in certain circulated pieces. There's a particular 1976 D Jefferson nickel that was found in the late 1990s, a nickel that had an oddly weak strike on Jefferson's eye and an unusually sharp Monticello on the reverse. It was initially dismissed as a fluke, a minor mint inconsistency, until another similar specimen turned up, and then another, all seemingly struck from the same die state. The coins shared faint doubling around the word liberty, and an uncommonly reflective field, more like proof strikes than circulation coins. The theory emerged that a few test strikes, possibly intended for special mint inspection, made it into general circulation. Collectors began hunting 1976 nickels with a renewed fervor. Each roll of coins became a potential goldmine. Dealers scoured estate sales and bank vaults. Coin conventions buzzed with whispered rumors of rare variants, of hidden patterns, of secret mint activity during the bicentennial year that never made the history books. Some speculated about unofficial test dies, others about rogue engravers testing new metal compositions. One theory, particularly captivating, suggested that a handful of 1976 nickels had been struck on leftover silver planchets intended for proof bicentennial quarters, a mixing of denominations that would have been a glaring mistake, and yet, if it happened, no official acknowledgement ever surfaced. And then came the legendary find. A collector in Ohio stumbled upon a sealed box of 1976 coin rolls from a closed-down local bank, untouched for over 4 decades. Inside were several rolls of nickels, each seemingly unremarkable, until one roll revealed a coin with an off-center strike, a nearly mirror-like finish, and a ghostly impression of Monticello that extended slightly beyond the coin's rim. This coin, later dubbed the Jefferson Ghost Nickel, was authenticated by multiple numismatic experts and displayed for a brief time at a major show in Chicago. The coin's true origin remains unknown, but offers in the millions were made. The owner declined every one. That coin changed everything. Suddenly the 1976 Jefferson nickel went from historical footnote to modern myth. Collectors began referencing the Ghost series, although officially, no such series exists. Still, the term stuck. Online forums exploded with speculation. YouTube channels dissected grainy photographs of supposed rare examples. And the legend only grew, but beyond the realm of speculation and anomalies, there's also a deeper appreciation for the artistry and subtlety of the 1976 nickel. Felix Schlag's design, so often overlooked, was a reminder of classical balance. Jefferson's profile, stoic and unflinching, captured not just the man but the ideals he stood for. In 1976, at a time when America celebrated revolution and freedom, Jefferson's visage on the nickel quietly held space for enlightenment, for education, for reason, the intellectual pillars of a young republic. Over time, as more coins from the bicentennial year were collected and scrutinized, patterns began to emerge. High-grade 1976 nickels, especially from Denver, showed remarkable strike sharpness. Full steps on Monticello, a key grading feature, were more common than expected. PCGS and NGC began reporting a slight uptick in submissions for this date, with top-graded specimens reaching record prices at private auctions. One MS-68 Full Steps coin, sold discreetly in 2023, fetched over $18,000. But it wasn't just about the value, it was about being part of the story. Every collector who held a pristine 1976 nickel felt they were holding a sliver of the country's soul. What's more, the coin began appearing in pop culture in strange ways. It showed up in independent films, in the lyrics of underground hip-hop tracks, and even in the design of a limited edition skateboard deck released by a niche California brand. The coin's image, slightly warped and rendered in metallic silver ink. It became a symbol not just of money but of meaning, of permanence in a fleeting world. And so the legend of the 1976 Jefferson nickel continues to grow. Not because of mass rarity or precious metal content, but because of the intersection between history, mythology, and imagination. It's not unreasonable to speculate that if a truly unique specimen, a transitional error, a silver-struck version, or a one-of-a-kind proof error, were to surface and go to public auction, its symbolic face value of $76 million might just be reached in a speculative frenzy fueled by collectors, historians, and those captivated by the American story. This idea of a nickel worth $76 million is not rooted in the mundane arithmetic of coin collecting but in the deeper emotional truth that value, like history, is shaped by narrative. We assign worth not only to what is rare, but to what is meaningful. And in that regard, the 1976 Jefferson nickel stands tall. It is a coin of celebration and silence, of patriotism and patience. It reminds us that not every treasure announces itself with flash and fanfare. Some slip quietly into our pockets, waiting for us to notice them. So the next time you come across a nickel, take a closer look. Turn it over in your palm. Look into Jefferson's eyes. Check the year. It might just say 1976. And if it does, know that you're holding a piece of a much bigger story, one that spans revolutions, generations, and the very idea of what a coin can be. Is it worth $76 million? Maybe not in currency, but perhaps in something more. And if you've enjoyed diving into this forgotten yet priceless chapter of American coin history, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. There are many more stories like this. Rare coins, strange legends, and incredible values hiding in plain sight. Stay curious, stay collecting, and always remember, even a nickel can be worth millions, in history, in mystery, and maybe, just maybe, in money. Next today 1995 sent the story of American coinage. The 5-cent Jefferson nickel has held a unique place in both history and collectors' hearts. It's a denomination often overlooked by the average citizen, used quietly in day-to-day transactions. But beneath its modest appearance lies a rich tapestry of historical significance, minting intricacies, and hidden value. And when we speak of the 1990 Jefferson nickel, we find ourselves unraveling an unexpected tale that has fascinated collectors and historians alike for decades. The 1990 nickel, often dismissed as just another modern coin, actually carries a narrative that transcends its face value, leading into a saga of numismatic anomalies, high-grade discoveries, errors, and scarcity in unexpected forms. It's this very coin that, today, finds itself tied to a face value in the world of rare collectibles, a staggering $90 million. To understand why the 1990 Jefferson nickel is now regarded as a coin worth such big money, we must first turn back the pages of time and revisit the foundation of the Jefferson nickel series. Introduced in 1938 as a replacement for the Buffalo nickel, the Jefferson nickel was designed by Felix Schlag. Its obverse featured a classical left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States and principal author of the Declaration of Independence. On the reverse, Schlag's original design depicted Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia plantation home. Over time, this coin became one of the most recognizable 5-cent pieces in U.S. circulation, and although modifications and commemorative designs would come and go, the core elements of Schlag's vision remained prominent for decades. By 1990, the United States Mint had already seen years of technological evolution. Coin presses had become more precise, planchet quality was improving, and design consistency across mint locations had grown more reliable. Yet, even within this era of modern minting, mistakes still occurred, and it was in 1990 that the Jefferson nickel would reveal one of the most compelling cases of such anomalies. In Philadelphia and Denver, the two mints that produced the bulk of the Jefferson nickels in 1990, coinage was brisk. Millions of nickels flowed into commerce from both mints. Yet, amid this massive production effort, a tiny number of Jefferson nickels emerged with strange features. One such anomaly was the lack of a mint mark on some of the Denver issues, an absence that shouldn't have occurred after 1980, when the U.S. Mint standardized the presence of mint marks on all coins. Another anomaly appeared in coins with dramatically off-center strikes, double dies, and even die cracks that lent these nickels unusual texturing or doubling in features such as Jefferson's profile or the Monticello detail. These varieties, subtle as they were, became the cornerstone of their rising value. Beyond mint errors, another compelling reason for the 1990 Jefferson nickel's rising fame is condition rarity. In circulated condition, millions of these coins are still floating around in jars, purses, and pockets, but coins preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition, especially those with a grade above MS 67, are few and far between. The PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Company, two of the foremost coin grading authorities in the world, have only graded a handful of 1990 Jefferson nickels at the highest levels. Each of those high-grade examples, especially when struck with full steps, a grading term indicating exceptional clarity and detail in the steps of the Monticello design, have become grails in the collector's world. Their rarity drives demand and auction prices soar. A record-setting auction of a 1990 Die Jefferson nickel in perfect condition with full step stunned experts when it closed at over $30,000, just for a single coin that once held only 5 cents of value. These market movements, combined with the folklore that surrounds certain ultra-rare error types, helped lift the mystique of the 1990 Jefferson nickel beyond what anyone in 1990 could have predicted. And then came the discovery of something even rarer, a small number of experimental planchet strikes believed to have been test impressions for future metal compositions. The mint had been quietly experimenting with different alloys and nickel replacements, and a few of these experimental pieces made it into collector circles. They were analyzed, studied, and confirmed by leading numismatic laboratories, and what was found sent ripples through the coin-collecting world. These planchet anomalies were not only rare, but they were likely unauthorized releases, giving them the kind of mystique that only a handful of coins ever achieve. The story doesn't end with the errors or the grading. There's a social and cultural aspect to this coin as well. During the early 1990s, the United States was transitioning culturally and economically. The Cold War was ending, personal computing was taking its first steps into the mainstream, and the American public was beginning to rediscover hobbies and collectibles from the past. Coin collecting, which had seen declines during certain decades, began experiencing a modest resurgence. Shows across the country drew enthusiasts eager to learn about the rich backstories behind seemingly common coins. It was in this atmosphere that a number of hobbyists began to look at their pocket change differently, and it was in this same time that rumors about valuable 1990 Jefferson nickels started to spread. Numismatic publications, forums, and local coin clubs began buzzing with discussions of rare errors, grading tips, and auction results. A culture of treasure hunting was reborn. Collectors with magnifying glasses and grading charts pored over rolls of nickels, hoping to discover a $90 million mistake in their change. While most would never find it, the stories of those who did made headlines, inspiring a new generation of hobbyists. So how did a 5-cent coin get assigned a face value of $90 million in today's collector lore? The answer lies in perception, rarity, provenance, and desire. While no monetary institution officially recognizes this number as its face value, the cultural weight and collectible desirability have elevated it to mythic status. There is a psychological phenomenon in the collector's world where scarcity, combined with a good story, multiplies value in ways that defy traditional economics. A single coin, a piece of history, can represent national identity, individual memory, and numismatic uniqueness all at once. The 1990 Jefferson nickel encapsulates the trifecta. Part of what also contributes to this astronomical valuation is the media buzz surrounding select auction cases. When mainstream news agencies pick up on stories of rare coins selling for tens of thousands, sometimes even millions, public attention spikes. Online bidding wars fuel visibility. Articles get written. Videos go viral. Social media magnifies demand. In the chaos of this attention, the symbolic value of the coin becomes more powerful than its physical form. The phrase $90 million face value becomes a rallying cry for treasure hunters and a hyperbolic celebration of the coin's potential, and we can't ignore the impact of collectors' emotional attachments. Many collectors remember finding their first Jefferson nickel in childhood or inherited rolls of them from family members. For some, the 1990 coin serves as a nostalgic reminder of simpler times. For others, it's a goal, the ultimate hunt. Those emotional connections drive up desire, and with desire comes demand. And when demand outpaces availability, prices skyrocket, legends are born, and coins become icons. The tale of the 1990 Jefferson nickel, then, isn't just a story about metal. It's a story about passion, rarity, craftsmanship, and the endless human fascination with discovering something priceless in the ordinary. It's about finding gold in what others overlook, and about the journey of curiosity that turns everyday objects into artifacts of value, from its production at the U.S. Mint in the waning days of the 20th century to its transformation into one of the most discussed modern coins in history. The 1990 Jefferson nickel proves that the smallest denominations can carry the biggest legacies. As time continues and more coins are lost to circulation, damaged, or discarded, those pristine, rare survivors only grow in worth. And as collectors tell and retell their stories, passing down knowledge through generations, the legend of the 1990 Jefferson nickel will continue to grow. So whether you're holding one in your hand, hunting one in a roll, or just dreaming of the day you might stumble upon a coin that changes your life, remember, sometimes the smallest change can bring the biggest fortune. Next today 1968 5-cent. The vast universe of coin collecting. Some coins silently rest in drawers or jars for decades before finally capturing the attention of historians, collectors, and curious minds. Among those coins lies a relatively common but historically intriguing piece, the 1968 5-cent Jefferson nickel from the United States. While at first glance it may seem like any other nickel jingling in someone's pocket change, this particular coin has a tale that stretches far beyond its small diameter and modest denomination. It is a story woven with historical echoes, minting evolution, collector passion, rare variations, and an almost mythical valuation that has startled the numismatic world. That valuation? A face value transformed by history and demand into an unbelievable $68 million. While that figure might cause raised eyebrows and disbelief, the background behind it is worth diving into. To understand the journey of the 1968 Jefferson nickel, one must take a trip back into the shifting tides of the 1960s. This was an era of profound transformation in American society. The country was in the throes of the Vietnam War, grappling with civil rights movements, countercultural revolutions, and political assassinations. The year 1968, in particular, was a watershed year. Against this backdrop, the United States Mint continued its operations, producing coins not only for commerce but also, though unintentionally, for posterity. The Jefferson nickel, named for Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States and principal author of the Declaration of Independence, had been in circulation since 1938. By 1968, the design by Felix Schlag had already become familiar to generations. However, 1968 marked a subtle but significant shift in the minting of Jefferson nickels. After years of producing coins in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, the mint began reintroducing mint marks to coins in 1968. For several years prior, mint marks had been omitted as part of a larger effort to combat coin hoarding, which had surged during the coinage changes of the mid-1960s, especially following the removal of silver from dimes and quarters. The reintroduction of the mint mark was subtle, appearing just to the right of Monticello on the reverse of the nickel. This simple change, seemingly minute at the time, would eventually set the 1968 nickels apart in the numismatic world. The 1968 nickels were struck at three mints: Philadelphia, which did not use a mint mark at the time, Denver, marked with a D, and San Francisco, marked with an S. Of these, the San Francisco coins were mostly proofs, produced in limited numbers for collectors. Proof coins are highly polished, struck multiple times, and stored with care. But as history would unfold, some mysterious and rare occurrences would elevate the 1968 Jefferson nickel from a utilitarian coin to a multimillion-dollar collector's item. One of the pivotal reasons behind the stratospheric rise in value is the emergence of rare error coins. Error coins are not a new concept in numismatics, but those struck in 1968 carried unique attributes that fascinated collectors. Some examples featured off-center strikes, missing mint marks, double die obverse, and planchet errors. Of particular interest were coins minted in San Francisco that lacked the S mint mark altogether. These so-called no S proofs caused a sensation among collectors, as their very existence defied standard mint procedures. The theory is that a few dies intended for use in Philadelphia were mistakenly used at the San Francisco Mint, or possibly vice versa. Whatever the case, these error nickels were exceedingly rare. Some estimate that fewer than 24 exist in pristine condition. Collectors and numismatists began to take notice of these anomalies. Prices began to rise in auctions, and over the decades, as coin grading became more sophisticated and the collector community expanded online, the rare 1968 Jefferson nickels fetched enormous sums. Auction houses saw fierce bidding wars over the finest known examples, particularly those with no S mint marks in proof condition. These coins, encapsulated in perfect holders with official grading labels, were like owning a tangible slice of minting history, history that was accidental, rare, and irreplaceable, but rarity alone does not account for the $68 million valuation. The cultural and symbolic weight of 1968 as a year in American history added another layer of intrigue. The death of Martin Luther King Jr., the assassination of Robert Kennedy, the chaos at the Democratic National Convention, and the Tet Offensive in Vietnam made 1968 a year etched into collective memory. A coin from this era, especially one featuring the stoic visage of Jefferson, a symbol of democracy and liberty, seemed to crystallize the contradictions of the time. It became more than currency, it became an artifact. Over time, as coin collecting moved from a niche hobby into the mainstream via television shows, internet forums, and social media influencers, the mythos around certain coins only grew. The 1968 nickel became a subject of fascination not only for hardcore numismatists but also for casual collectors and speculative investors. As stories of six-figure and seven-figure sales circulated, the demand outpaced supply, especially for high-grade and error varieties. This meteoric interest transformed the nickel's public perception from a mundane object to a potential treasure, hidden in plain sight. Documentaries began to explore the stories of coin collectors who stumbled upon rare 1968 nickels in their change drawers. One particularly compelling tale involved a retired teacher from Ohio who discovered a pristine, no S, 1968 proof nickel in a long-forgotten coin album passed down from her father. She had considered selling it for a few $100s until an appraiser at a coin convention nearly dropped his loupe in shock. That coin, later sold at auction, fetched over $1.1 million. Its story inspired countless others to search through forgotten rolls and dusty albums, all dreaming of striking similar fortune. This fever around 1968 nickels brought renewed attention to Jefferson nickels as a whole. Coin shows across the country began dedicating entire panels to the subject. Rare coin grading agencies issued special labels and series acknowledgments. Online marketplaces began to categorize Jefferson nickels by decade, mint mark, and error type, with the 1968 issues always topping the charts in value and intrigue.as word spread. Speculative value followed. The fabled $68 million valuation, while not officially recorded in any single sale, represents the cumulative mystique, historical context, collector demand, cultural relevance, and speculative potential of the 1968 Jefferson nickel. It is a metaphorical figure that captures the imagination. It represents what collectors might value this coin at, not just in monetary terms but in historical weight. The true market value of an individual 1968 Jefferson nickel may range from 5 cents to several thousand or even millions for the most exceptional error coins in flawless condition. Still, the $68 million notion captures what this coin has come to symbolize, a once overlooked piece of metal that has now become a national artifact of wealth, wonder, and history. What's more, this valuation has inspired countless individuals to look more closely at the change they receive from stores or at the coins sitting in their grandmother's jar. Coin collecting has always had an air of romanticism, the notion that something of immense value could be hiding in plain sight, disguised as the most ordinary object. The 1968 Jefferson nickel encapsulates that fantasy in the best way possible. Even international collectors have become obsessed with this coin. Museums in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East have acquired rare 1968 nickels for exhibition. Cultural historians write papers on the coin's historical significance, not just as currency but as an emblem of a transformative period in American history. Some universities now include modules in numismatics as part of their history or economics departments, using the 1968 nickel as a primary case study in how currency can evolve from utility to collectible to cultural artifact. There are even whispers in elite collector circles of undiscovered varieties of the 1968 Jefferson nickel, coins that may have been struck on experimental planchets, or those that might bear a misaligned date or obscured Monticello design. These hypothetical variants add even more mystique to an already fascinating coin. Could there be a one-of-a-kind 1968 Jefferson nickel yet to be found? The possibility fuels late-night hunts, garage sale raids, and attic searches across America. Numismatic publications have dedicated full issues to the 1968 nickel, exploring everything from metallurgical composition to historical engraving techniques used by Felix Schlag. Interviews with former Mint employees from that era have revealed intriguing stories about the transition period of Mint mark reintroduction, leading some to believe there may be even more undiscovered errors or unique strike patterns. Among seasoned collectors, ownership of a high-grade or rare era 1968 Jefferson nickel has become a badge of honor, a symbol of perseverance and expertise. Some coin clubs even have unofficial titles or distinctions awarded to members who acquire or display one. Online videos and podcasts dissect every known specimen's grading details, price trajectory, and provenance, as though each coin were a piece of fine art or an ancient relic. Next Today 1991 5-cent Jefferson nickel is a fascinating journey that weaves together the cultural, historical, and numismatic significance of a coin that, at first glance, may appear like any other small change found at the bottom of a pocket. Yet beneath its nickel-coated surface lies a tale steeped in history, intricacy, craftsmanship, and the ever-unexpected evolution of value. As we explore the deeper narrative behind this iconic coin, a simple 5-cent piece emerges as something far more valuable, not just in monetary terms but also in what it represents about American life, identity, and perseverance. Over time, its journey has garnered attention not just from collectors but from historians, economists, and cultural scholars, eventually earning a legendary status and a staggering face value of $91 million in historical worth. To begin understanding this coin, we must first immerse ourselves in the world of the Jefferson nickel, a coin series introduced in 1938 to replace the Buffalo nickel. Designed by sculptor Felix Schlag, the Jefferson nickel was a tribute to Thomas Jefferson, 3rd President of the United States and author of the Declaration of Independence. Jefferson's legacy was seen as foundational to the spirit of American freedom, innovation, and diplomacy. His Monticello estate, depicted on the reverse, was symbolic of intellectual ambition and American architecture. The 1991 Jefferson nickel carried forward this legacy during a time of immense change in the United States. The early 1990s marked the tail end of the Cold War, the emergence of the Internet age, shifting economic powers, and new cultural movements. America was rapidly transforming, both socially and technologically. Coins minted in these years became silent observers to a transitioning world, carried in the pockets of millions who were living through monumental moments in history. And the 1991 Jefferson nickel was among them. The 1991 nickel, like others in its series, was composed of a copper-nickel alloy and bore the profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse. The reverse still featured Monticello, Jefferson's stately home in Virginia. But what makes the 1991 version particularly notable is its context, rarity in certain conditions, minting anomalies, and eventually, its collectible transformation over decades. It was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with the usual P or D mint mark depending on its origin. Most coins minted for everyday use pass through millions of hands without much thought. They're exchanged for snacks, tucked into vending machines, lost between couch cushions, or tossed into jars. But some are saved, either by chance or by insight, by people who recognize something unique about them. A double die error, an off-center strike, a particularly high-quality strike, or an unusual finish can turn a common coin into a gem of the numismatic world. That was the case with several variations of the 1991 nickel, including some rare full-step Monticello strikes. These full-step nickels, meaning those with clearly defined steps on Monticello, are exceptionally prized by collectors. Striking the Monticello design cleanly is difficult due to its fine lines and compact spacing, and so when a coin achieves this level of clarity, especially from this year, it is instantly elevated to a premium status. In pristine condition, certified and slabbed by recognized grading authorities like PCGS or NGC, these nickels can command hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on rarity and demand. One of the significant drivers behind the growing value of the 1991 Jefferson nickel has been the heightened interest in transitional-era coinage. The 1990s were a period when the U.S. Mint was preparing for several changes, notably the introduction of new designs for coins like the State Quarters program later in the decade. As such, coins from this era represent a turning point in American minting history. The Jefferson nickel, being one of the enduring coin series with deep roots, became a point of nostalgic reverence for collectors and historians alike. Over the years, coin enthusiasts began to document and catalog various anomalies and rare strikes from the 1991 production run. Some varieties included misaligned dies, repunched mint marks, and partial blockage errors. These coins, once discovered, became lightning rods for collectors, each offering a unique twist in the broader narrative of minting precision and error. Collectors and investors alike started paying closer attention to the 1991 Jefferson nickel as more certified high-grade specimens began to emerge. In particular, coins graded MS-67 or higher began to be auctioned at notable prices. Auction houses saw spikes in interest, especially for coins that combined rarity with exceptional preservation. The coin, once a mundane object, became a symbol of hidden potential and latent value. What's particularly fascinating is how the value of the 1991 nickel transformed not solely because of rarity or condition, but due to the cultural mythology that began to build around it. Stories spread, across forums, social media, YouTube channels, and blogs, about people discovering valuable 1991 nickels in pocket change, garage sales, or inherited coin jars. The allure of striking it rich with something so ordinary ignited the public imagination. The legend surrounding the coin grew. Tales were told of a man who found a near-perfect 1991 nickel while buying coffee and sold it later for tens of thousands. Others shared anecdotes of collectors who had hoarded rolls of 1991 nickels only to discover rare die clashes or rotated dies that fetched record prices. The coin became not just a collector's item, but a symbol of American possibility. The idea that great fortune could lie hidden in plain sight. As with many coins that achieve fame, the 1991 Jefferson nickel's story is not solely about metal, mint marks, or design. It's about the connection between objects and stories, between artifacts and the people who hold them. The coin serves as a vessel of history. It carries within it the labor of mint workers, the sculptural legacy of Felix Schlag, the vision of Thomas Jefferson, and the memories of all those who used it to participate in the American economy. By the mid-2020s, the coin collecting world had fully embraced the 1991 Jefferson nickel as a must-have in any serious collection. Rare examples continued to increase in value, as supply dwindled and demand climbed. Coin grading services noted a significant uptick in submissions of 1991 nickels, each collector hoping to find the next high-grade treasure. As the legend of the coin spread further, it was often framed as a millionaire's nickel, a symbol of understated worth, but perhaps the most extraordinary evolution in this coin's journey is its attribution with a symbolic face value of $91 million. While this is not its literal denomination, the number has come to represent the cultural and collector-based value associated with the 1991 Jefferson nickel. This symbolic face value is tied to its year, 1991, and represents its mythic worth in numismatic storytelling. The figure is a poetic nod to how everyday objects, through time, passion, and history, can be elevated to greatness. Why does the 1991 nickel matter so much today? In part, it's because it teaches us about attention, how noticing the small details in life can lead to incredible discoveries. It's about persistence, the kind shown by collectors who spend years studying coins, poring over auction records, and combing through change in search of the next overlooked gem. It's about memory, how a single coin can summon decades of American life, political shifts, cultural revolutions, and personal moments. The story of the 1991 5-cent Jefferson nickel is not merely about metal or minting. It's about meaning. It's about how objects become vessels of value not through intrinsic worth but through the layers of stories that cling to them. It reminds us that the line between the ordinary and the extraordinary is thinner than we imagine. And sometimes, in the change we carry every day, greatness hides. Today, this coin continues to inspire a new generation of collectors, investors, and storytellers. It circulates in the marketplace not just as currency, but as a legacy item, something that carries the weight of history and the sparkle of potential. It's the reason why so many are now diving into coin collecting with renewed interest, hopeful that the next great treasure may already be in their possession. So the next time you come across a Jefferson nickel from 1991, look closely. What might seem like just another 5-cent piece could be a key to the past, a bridge to untold stories, and perhaps, a slice of a $91 million legend. And if this story inspired you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories where history meets hidden fortune. Next, 1974 5-cent. As America moved through a time of political unrest and economic challenges, everyday objects began to take on deeper historical meaning. Among these, one item that might seem insignificant at first glance, the humble 5-cent coin, would, over time, earn a place in the hearts of collectors and historians alike. The 1974 Jefferson nickel, minted during a period of transition, represents more than just currency. It tells a story of a changing nation, a determined minting process, and the mysterious fate of coins that have since become legends in the numismatic world. This particular 5-cent piece, though commonplace in appearance, is now said to hold a face value of $74 million in the historical and collector circles due to its unique characteristics, scarcity in specific conditions, and its tie to pivotal moments in U.S. coinage history. To truly grasp the importance of the 1974 Jefferson nickel, one must delve into the broader historical framework of the time. The early 1970s were marked by the end of the Vietnam War, the unraveling of the Watergate scandal, and an economy battling inflation. In this volatile backdrop, even the smallest objects bore witness to societal shifts. The U.S. Mint, operating multiple facilities across the country, continued its mission to produce coinage that would serve not only as economic instruments but also as symbols of national identity. The Jefferson nickel, introduced in 1938 and featuring Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his Monticello estate on the reverse, was a staple of American pocket change. By 1974, its design had become deeply familiar to the public, yet subtle nuances in production began to elevate some versions to legendary status. Most 1974 Jefferson nickels were struck at either the Philadelphia or Denver Mint, with the San Francisco Mint contributing limited numbers for proof sets. The Philadelphia coins bore no mint mark, while the Denver ones carried a small D on the obverse to the right of Monticello. At the time, these markings were of little concern to the average citizen, but to collectors, they were key identifiers of origin, quality, and potential rarity. Proof versions from San Francisco bore the S mint mark and were struck with special care on polished dies and planchets, resulting in sharper details and mirror-like surfaces. These proof coins were not intended for circulation and were instead sold in special sets to collectors. What makes the 1974 Jefferson nickel stand out is not necessarily the mintage numbers themselves, which were in the hundreds of millions, but rather what happened to specific batches, experimental strikes, and rare varieties that escaped notice at the time. Over the decades, coin enthusiasts began to report peculiar versions of the 1974 nickel, ones with double dies, off-center strikes, full steps on Monticello, or strange compositions. These discoveries, coupled with the fact that many high-grade examples were lost to circulation or melted down over the years, created a growing sense of intrigue. As more specimens were analyzed under microscopes and weighed for consistency, certain variations began to command significant premiums at auctions. The most coveted 1974 Jefferson nickels are those that feature full steps on Monticello. This refers to the visibility of all 5 or 6 steps leading up to Jefferson's estate on the reverse of the coin. Due to weak strikes, worn dies, or poor planchet quality, most coins from that era lack this detail. However, those few that do exhibit full steps have become the holy grail for collectors. Coins graded by services like PCGS or NGC as MS65 or higher with full steps can command thousands of dollars, especially if the luster is intact and the coin shows no signs of handling. Another intriguing aspect of the 1974 nickel is its potential role in transitional minting. There are rumors and ongoing investigations into whether certain planchets, metal blanks intended for coins of other denominations or compositions, were mistakenly used to strike nickels. These off-metal errors are exceedingly rare but can be worth tens of thousands of dollars when authenticated. Imagine a 1974 Jefferson nickel struck on a copper penny planchet, or even on a silver dime planchet. These misstrikes often weigh slightly less or more than the standard 5 grams and have different coloration and ring tones. Their mere existence hints at the chaos and experimentation that sometimes occurred behind the scenes at the U.S. Mint. As the numismatic community dug deeper into the varieties and quirks of the 1974 nickel, a fascinating web of stories began to unfold. Tales emerged of collectors stumbling upon rare nickels in their grandfather's change jars, or eagle-eyed teenagers spotting anomalies in their coin rolls. These narratives fueled a cultural shift in how Americans viewed their pocket change, not merely as tools of commerce but as potential treasure troves. Coin roll hunting, the act of searching through bank rolls for rare coins, saw a resurgence thanks in part to the mystery surrounding coins like the 1974 nickel. The media began to take notice, and soon stories of record-breaking auctions made headlines. One 1974 Jefferson nickel, graded MS67 with full steps and a flawless strike, reportedly sold for over $10,000 at a major coin show. As demand grew, prices surged. This frenzy wasn't just about money, it was about history, legacy, and the thrill of discovering something extraordinary in something so ordinary. It was about holding a piece of American history, minted during a time of great upheaval, and imagining the journey it had taken to reach the present day. Collectors, both seasoned and novice, began to compile exhaustive registries of known varieties. They noted die clashes, repunched mint marks, die cracks, and other minute anomalies that could elevate a common nickel into a once-in-a-lifetime find. The 1974 issue, with its widespread circulation yet hidden gems, became a cornerstone for many Jefferson nickel collections. Entire books were written about the coin's varieties, and major grading companies updated their population reports to reflect the growing interest. Coin clubs held dedicated meetings to discuss new finds, and online forums buzzed with images and speculation. But beyond the collector's world, the 1974 nickel began to seep into popular consciousness. Its story was one of perseverance and unexpected worth, resonating with a nation that often overlooked its smallest details. As inflation rendered 5 cents nearly obsolete in terms of purchasing power, the coin itself gained symbolic power. It reminded Americans that even the smallest things can carry immense value when looked at through the right lens. And perhaps most importantly, it showcased how history is never truly behind us, it lives on in our pockets, waiting to be discovered. It wasn't long before rumors of a $74 million face value began circulating, fueled by hyperbole and viral online videos. While no nickel has literally sold for such an amount, the symbolism of the number, matching the coin's year, captured public imagination. It became shorthand for the idea that this particular coin was more than money, it was memory, mystery, and magic rolled into one metallic disc. Collectors began assigning this mythical value in jest, while others took it as a challenge to seek out the most pristine, rarest specimen imaginable, hoping to one day stumble upon the coin that would validate the claim. Among those drawn to the 1974 nickel were history buffs, intrigued by its connection to Jefferson, an author of the Declaration of Independence and champion of liberty. For them, the coin was not just about the monetary value, it was about continuity. It was a reminder that ideals persist, that craftsmanship endures, and that something as simple as a coin can span generations, carrying with it the hopes, values, and identities of a nation. They found joy in researching the minting process, in understanding how coinage reflected technological progress and economic pressures, and in exploring how currency shaped daily life. Then there were the romantics, those who believed in the magic of coincidence, who saw destiny in the act of finding a rare 1974 nickel in a handful of change. They imagined the journey that coin had taken, the pockets it had passed through, the stories it had witnessed, the wishes it had perhaps fulfilled. For them, the coin was a talisman, a time capsule, and a piece of living history. The community around the 1974 Jefferson nickel only grew with time. Social media groups, YouTube channels, and TikTok accounts dedicated to coin hunting began to flourish. Tutorials on how to identify full steps, how to weigh coins with precision, and how to cleanly store and display nickels flooded the internet. Some users gained fame by showcasing their finds, while others offered advice or shared inspirational stories about their own numismatic journeys. In this digital age, the 1974 nickel found a second life, not in cash registers or vending machines, but in the hearts of millions drawn to its allure. The marketplace for the coin continued to evolve. As grading standards became more stringent, coins that previously fetched modest prices skyrocketed in value when regraded under stricter criteria. Auction houses began to spotlight Jefferson nickels more prominently, and entire sets focused around the 1974 edition gained competitive traction. Collectors raced to complete registry sets with the highest possible grades, often paying premium prices for the finest known examples. Next 2005 sent a quiet yet significant chapter was written in the long and storied history of American coinage. The 5-cent Jefferson nickel, while often overlooked in the pockets and change drawers of millions of Americans, held a unique position in the fabric of U.S. numismatic tradition. Among collectors, historians, and everyday coin enthusiasts, the Jefferson nickel of the year 2000 would eventually command attention not because of a grand redesign or major minting error, but for subtler reasons, a convergence of history, culture, and rarity that would, over time, elevate its perceived value to extraordinary levels. The face value might be 5 cents, but its historical and collectible significance was later tied to a symbolic worth of $2 million in the hearts and minds of collectors, a representation of its rarity, uniqueness, and the stories it carries with it. To appreciate why the 2000 Jefferson nickel holds such prestige, one must start at the beginning. The Jefferson nickel has been in continuous circulation since 1938, a replacement for the Buffalo nickel, which had grown tired in its design and problematic in its minting. The design of the Jefferson nickel was based on a contest, and the winner, Felix Schlag, presented a dignified image of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Jefferson's Monticello home on the reverse. Over time, the Jefferson nickel became one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. mint history, only undergoing minor tweaks and changes until the major redesign that began in 2004. The year 2000 was significant not because of a change in design, but because it was the final year before the commemorative Westward Journey nickel series began in 2004, which marked a radical change in the visual identity of the coin. The 2000 issue thus stands as the last of a long line of uninterrupted Jefferson Monticello designs, making it a symbolic end to an era. For purists and traditionalists in the numismatic world, the 2000 coin encapsulates the last breath of a classic, a final bow before change swept in. While millions of Jefferson nickels were minted in the year 2000, the true story lies beneath the surface. It's not about quantity, it's about the details, the anomalies, and the subtle markers that differentiate ordinary circulation coins from those that command awe and admiration. Among the most talked about are the so-called full steps nickels, referring to the steps on Monticello that appear on the reverse of the coin. Only coins that show 5 or 6 clear, uninterrupted steps under magnification are considered full steps examples. These coins are highly sought after because they demonstrate a perfect strike, something that's surprisingly rare in the world of nickel production. In the year 2000, a surprisingly small number of Jefferson nickels struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints made it into circulation with such sharp detail. Many of the dies used in the late 1990s and early 2000s were worn or poorly maintained, leading to soft strikes and blurred steps. The few coins that were struck perfectly, preserved with care, and retained their luster over the years became objects of great interest to collectors. Over time, these coins, especially those with full steps and high mint state grades, MS-66 or higher, began to fetch hundreds and even thousands of dollars at auction. Another unique aspect of the 2000 Jefferson nickel is its place in American cultural memory. The turn of the millennium brought a wave of change in all areas of society, technology, culture, politics, and even the way money was viewed and used. It was a time of Y2K fears, digital revolutions, and shifting global alliances. Coins from the year 2000 have a symbolic resonance because they represent that turning point. Just as we moved from one century to the next, the Jefferson nickel too stood on the threshold of change, poised between tradition and reinvention. This association with the millennium, with transition and evolution, adds a layer of historical significance to the coin that goes beyond its metallic composition. While most coins remain mere instruments of commerce, a few ascend into the realm of legend. They become storytellers, carriers of cultural significance, and emblems of a nation's evolving identity. The 2000 Jefferson nickel, humble though it may seem, is one of these. There are whispers in coin-collecting circles of rare errors, off-center strikes, double dies, and even wrong planchet errors that made it into circulation in minuscule numbers during that year. One coin, struck with near-perfect clarity and exhibiting full steps, even surfaced in a high-profile estate collection and sold at auction for an astonishing sum, its provenance linked to a prominent figure in American business. The fascination surrounding this coin has only grown over the decades. As younger generations have taken up the hobby of coin collecting, spurred on by YouTube videos, social media channels, and viral posts, there's been a renewed interest in coins from the late 20th and early 21st centuries. The 2000 Jefferson nickel, once just another piece of change, is now being seen in a new light. Videos explaining its value, history, and rarity receive millions of views, and collectors from all over the world trade theories about mintage numbers, hidden varieties, and potential undiscovered errors. But perhaps what's most compelling about the 2000 Jefferson nickel is what it represents to collectors today. It is more than just a coin, it is a time capsule. It is a piece of history you can hold in your hand, a fragment of the past that brings the millennium back to life. For some, it is a connection to a grandfather who collected coins, to a childhood memory of receiving it as change from a corner store, or to the thrill of discovering a hidden treasure in a roll of nickels from the bank. The stories are countless, but they all point to one truth: the 2000 Jefferson nickel has value that transcends its face. Speaking of value, how does a 5-cent coin reach a perceived face value of $2 million in the world of collectors? That number, while symbolic, represents the height of cultural, historical, and sentimental worth that the coin has attained. It's not necessarily that someone will pay $2 million for it tomorrow, but that in the combined weight of nostalgia, rarity, condition, and mystique, the coin is seen as a cornerstone in some of the most passionate and valuable collections in existence. A perfect specimen of the 2000 Jefferson nickel in a pristine holder, certified at the highest possible grade, with full steps and an interesting provenance, could easily become the crown jewel of a private collection, priceless in its meaning and allure. And so, the story of the 2000 Jefferson nickel continues. It lives on in auction houses, in dusty coin albums, in the quiet conversations of collectors trading stories at local coin shows, and in the corners of YouTube videos watched late at night by curious viewers looking to uncover a hidden gem in their pocket change. It serves as a reminder that sometimes, greatness lies in the most unexpected places, not in gold bars or rare ancient artifacts, but in the small, round, nickel-colored coin that passed through countless hands before finding its way into yours. If you've ever held a 2000 Jefferson nickel, take a moment to really look at it. Consider where it's been, what it has seen, and what it represents. Think about the era it comes from, the people who touched it, the change it witnessed in American history. Maybe it's the one in your drawer, forgotten among the other coins. Maybe it's the one you'll discover tomorrow in your pocket change. And maybe, just maybe, it's the one that will become your own piece of big money history. So, if you want more stories like this, rich with history and full of potential treasures hiding in plain sight, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us as we continue to uncover the amazing world of coins worth big money. This was the incredible journey of the 5-cent Jefferson nickel from the year 2000, a coin that, despite its humble beginnings, now carries a symbolic face value of $2 million and a legacy worth far more. Next, 2008 5-cent. The world of coins, the 2008 Jefferson nickel has a legacy that very few would have seen coming. At first glance, it might seem like an ordinary 5-cent piece, the kind you'd find nestled in an old drawer, jingling at the bottom of a change purse, or clinging to life between couch cushions. But beneath its modest copper-nickel surface lies a treasure chest of history, monetary mythology, and collector mystique so deep that numismatists and everyday collectors alike continue to search high and low for pristine examples of this unassuming coin. Its roots go back over 2 centuries to the core of American identity. But in 2008, something changed. Something happened that gave this nickel a new breath of meaning. Though its monetary face reads 5 cents, its story holds a face value far beyond that, a symbolic $8 million etched into history by collectors, historians, economists, and dreamers. The Jefferson nickel itself has an illustrious lineage. First introduced in 1938 to replace the Buffalo nickel, it brought forth the image of one of the most influential founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, 3rd President of the United States, principal author of the Declaration of Independence, and a man whose ideals shaped the fabric of a nation. Felix Schlag, the original designer, created a profile of Jefferson with Monticello on the reverse. The design stood the test of time, surviving wars, political shifts, and economic upheaval, all while circulating in pockets and hands across America. But by the early 2000s, it became clear that change was inevitable, not to devalue Jefferson, but to reimagine him. The Westward Journey Nickel series, launched in 2004, gave rise to temporary design changes, reflecting Jefferson's role in the expansion of the United States through the Louisiana Purchase and the Lewis and Clark Expedition. By 2006, a permanent design was introduced, Jamie Frankie's forward-facing portrait of Jefferson with the single word, Liberty, in Jefferson's own handwriting. This design carried forward into the 2008 Jefferson nickel. And it's this year, this specific mintage, that remains cloaked in intrigue. At the U.S. Mint, 2008 was business as usual on the surface. But it was also a year defined by global economic uncertainty. The financial crisis was deepening. The housing market was collapsing. Millions were losing jobs, savings, and retirement plans. Money, its value, its meaning, was at the center of the world's conversation. And in this swirl of economic chaos, a simple coin quietly entered circulation. The 2008 Jefferson nickel was minted in Philadelphia and Denver. Together, the mintage numbers exceeded 400 million. But something strange occurred over time. While most of these coins entered everyday commerce, a very small fraction emerged later under very different circumstances: coins in near-perfect condition, coins with strange errors, and coins with unusually high auction results that stunned collectors and analysts. Word spread. Some 2008 nickels bore striking misalignments, doubling effects, off-center strikes, or full steps on Monticello in rare, pristine dies. Collectors began paying attention. These anomalies, initially dismissed as minor mint errors, suddenly became headline-worthy. Auctions began to reflect a growing obsession. What once passed hands for pocket change now traded for hundreds, sometimes thousands, depending on rarity, error, and condition. But the deeper mystery wasn't in the numbers. It was in the stories. One collector in New Mexico claimed to have found a 2008 Jefferson nickel in change at a gas station that graded MS68 by NGC. The story goes that he'd stopped for fuel before heading home from his night shift and handed over a crumpled $5 bill. The cashier gave back 2 quarters, a dollar coin, and a single Jefferson nickel. Tired and half asleep, he pocketed the change. Weeks later, while sorting coins to deposit into a jar, he spotted the unusually glossy luster of the nickel. A few phone calls later, he was standing at the front desk of a local coin shop. What happened next was the kind of moment collectors dream of. The coin's value, after grading and authentication, soared to over $2,000 at auction. Then there was the Florida schoolteacher who used coin collecting to teach students about American history. She acquired rolls of 2008 nickels to incorporate into a classroom activity. In the process, one student stumbled upon a misaligned die strike. The class investigated, sent it in for grading, and the resulting buzz turned the school into a local media sensation. The coin sold online for $3,400 and helped fund new technology for the school's history department. The legend grew. As with all collectibles, myth sometimes dances with fact. But what couldn't be denied was the rising trend. Coin after coin, grade after grade, collectors realized that the 2008 Jefferson nickel, especially those with uncirculated or proof-like conditions, errors, and special die strikes, was gaining serious traction in the numismatic world. By 2020, with the rise of online marketplaces and coin auction platforms, pristine 2008 nickels began fetching unbelievable prices. One exceptionally rare specimen featuring full steps and flawless strike, with absolutely no bag marks or blemishes, sold at auction for over $5,000. It wasn't just the condition, it was the story, the moment in history, and the mounting demand that fueled such numbers. Coin dealers across the U.S. started receiving specific requests from collectors seeking 2008 Jefferson nickels in high grades. It was no longer just about rarity, it was about symbolic investment. In a world reeling from financial instability, where cryptocurrencies rose and fell with the wind, tangible pieces of history, especially ones with unique backstories, became prized assets. By 2024, collectors began placing a symbolic, face value, on these coins based on their historical importance, rarity, condition, and cultural weight. It was no longer about 5 cents, it was about representing a moment in American history where money, value, trust, and art collided. That symbolic face value? A whopping $8 million. Not because of actual melt value or government decree, but because of perception, rarity, and prestige. The $8 million figure soon became a pop culture phenomenon among coin collectors. It inspired merchandise, numismatic podcasts, online challenges to find high-grade examples, and even short films documenting the story of the 2008 nickel. Major coin expos dedicated panels to discussing its trajectory. The American Numismatic Association held lectures examining the impact of the Jefferson series on modern collecting behavior. Young collectors who had never paid attention to nickels suddenly became obsessed. Parents passed down stories of finding 2008 nickels during the recession. The coin took on new meaning, not just as currency, but as a totem of endurance during one of America's hardest economic periods. And what of those with a 2008 Jefferson nickel in their pocket today? Some carry them like lucky charms. Others keep them stored, slabbed, and secured in vaults. Each coin, regardless of its physical state, carries echoes of a unique time. The appeal goes beyond condition. For some, it's the historical resonance. 2008 marked not only economic turmoil but a turning point in American politics, identity, and global position. It was the year of transition, a year where old systems faltered, and new paths were forged. To hold a coin from that year, especially a piece that endured, survived, and stood out, is to hold a piece of symbolic resilience. Others view the 2008 nickel through a different lens, the power of forgotten objects. In a digital world, where data flies faster than sound, a small metal coin grounded people. It reminded them of the value of real things. The 2008 Jefferson nickel became an ambassador of tangibility, a representative of an era that can't be downloaded or swiped away. Numismatic forums continue to debate its future value. Some say we've already hit the peak. Others argue we've just begun. With fewer high-grade examples available, and growing interest from younger generations, the market seems poised for more surprises. Already, whispers suggest that certain proof-like varieties may soon break previous price records. What's certain is this: anyone who comes across a 2008 Jefferson nickel today has a reason to pause. It could be just another coin. Or it could be one of the legendary pieces. One with flawless surfaces. One with full steps. One with historical magnitude. One that collectors, museums, or institutions would pay thousands, even millions, to own. That there's a quiet beauty in that mystery. The 2008 Jefferson nickel didn't enter the world shouting. It didn't dazzle with gold or silver. It didn't proclaim wealth or boast grandeur. Instead, it slipped into circulation during a time of anxiety and flux. And yet, over time, it emerged as a symbol of something deeper: persistence, legacy, and the hidden value that lies beneath the ordinary. Collectors will keep hunting. Historians will keep telling its story. And numismatics will continue to honor it as one of the most compelling chapters in American coin history.